This is Leadership Beyond, your community of conversation.
But this is the first time in my professional career that everybody, 100% of us, are consciously aware we are engaged in a change initiative.
Yeah, everything. I mean, COVID caused us all to go through change, right? At the same time, but our experiences were so different.
Facing these unprecedented times in isolation is pure insanity.
Joining us today is Kristin Lamar. Kristin is a stress management strategist, leadership transformational advisor, and intuitive problem solver. She's the owner and founder of Kristin Lamar Inspires and co-founder of the Relationship Matrix. Her customer base ranges from individuals, small business owners, entrepreneurs, CEOs, and companies looking to evaluate personally and professionally through self-awareness and feel the benefits of life's overall success. Before starting her business as an intuitive leadership advisor, she co-owned a gourmet coffee and sandwich shop with her husband in a small town outside of Chicago, while enjoying a 30-year career as a professional makeup artist in the film and television industry. She loved the creative work, the thrill and excitement of the industry, and the people. Her interactions with the various types of people and their personalities fascinated her, and she eventually realized where her profound strengths and passion lay in helping others manage life stress and tapping into their intuition and creating more inspiring, soulful transformations for those looking for a better way to experience a more grounded and fulfilled life. While she experienced many lifetime accomplishments personally and professionally, her favorites are the transformations she has witnessed with her clients in leadership, business, and life. When she works with people genuinely ready to move the internal and external mountains out of the way, their lives change forever in the most brilliant and surprising ways. This is priceless. Kristin's mission is to raise awareness that professionals do not go to work. People do. When we are aligned with our true inner wisdom, all things are possible.
Well, as I hear that last line of her bio, I'm reminded of the experience, and I think you'll notice it too. We hear over and over again, bring your whole self to work. And we are body, mind, and spirit. So if we leave our soul behind, we're missing a lot of anchored authenticity. And she builds trust very quickly, and I can see how she can guide us to bring our whole selves to work.
The conversation that we have with Kristin reminds me that even through screens, we're able to connect at a different level. And if you allow it, and we experienced that with Kristin, and I'm certain it's the intuitive nature that she brings and the spirit that she brings, but to be able to really experience that in a virtual way, I can't even imagine what that feels like when you're actually in person. She brings this to her clients. What a gift that she can bring. And so we feel it. We look forward to you experiencing it as well as you listen to this. Welcome, Kristin Lamar.
Good afternoon, Kristin. Thanks for joining us.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me. It's a treat. I appreciate it.
We're really looking forward to having a chat with you. Kristin, so I was looking at your website, right at the top of your website, KristinLamarInspires.com. You ask, are you living an aligned life? Would you please define for us what you mean by aligned, and then share a little bit about the unique way that you help leaders find alignment?
That's a good question. So I think alignment is different for everyone. So, and depending on the topic, aligned in leadership, aligned here. So it's a big word. We use it a lot, but alignment is that heart, the heart set, the soul set, and the mindset. So are we in alignment when we leave home? Are we in alignment when we live our life? The topic of having really, really good connection with yourself. So to me, the self is the soul or the higher self, right? So that's the intuitive side of who we are. This is an alignment. We were deliberately created with intuition, with a soul, with a heart, with the brain, with the body. We can't separate it, but people try, and there's all different ways that we try to separate it, but that alignment is our superpower. because when you're in that alignment, you really can do anything. And that's where that idea of manifestation comes. And that's a little deeper topic, and you can spin that in many directions too. But still, the core of manifesting a good life, you still have to be in alignment with your heart, your soul, and your mind, right? And your body and your health too is a piece of that.
Well, tell us a little bit about your background and how you felt that this was your calling to bring this alignment to people.
Um, I don't think I had a choice, to be quite
Mm.
honest. You know, I really, there was, you know, my life was completely explained, like my whole past life, meaning this life that I've lived, until I had this breakthrough where I'm going to call spirit, meaning it was just this loud thing that happened in my life where I could no longer ignore that this was the path to take. So it was bumpy road. And you know, when you have family and friends and all these people in your life, and they know there's something unique about you, because I never turned it off. I just didn't know what I was doing, right? So people would be attracted to me. We'd have great conversations. They'd leave with these insights, and I'd be like, "Oh, where did that come from?" You know, but once I sort of said yes to it, then all bets were off. Like everything just came out full blown. And as I worked with it, it made my whole life made sense. Meaning the things when I was a kid, the things that I would see, the instincts that I have, even being a makeup artist in the film business. I did that for 30 years. The more I developed myself, heart, mind, and soul, that intuitive self, I knew exactly when to go back to set. I knew when to go do things without people calling me on the walkie. And even though that's such a simple thing, it's our superpower. You know, I mean, imagine just being tuned into your senses as a leader. So if we can elevate us as people to that level, the experience of being with people will be greater overall. Make sense?
Yeah.
And so now you do work as an intuitive success advisor, I think is the role title that you've defined, right? Tell us a little bit about how you do that. How do you do that for others?
It's morphed a couple of times. But the way that it is now is, if you want a one-on-one session with me, I utilize this high level of wisdom, consciousness, and connection to really get you where you want to go very quickly. So it's in terms of, and I have CEOs and owners of companies, and I work with their leaders. And when you meet with me, I do a little bit of a download. So it's like an automatic writing. I do a small meditation. I write some things on a piece of paper. They mean absolutely nothing to me. Then we meet, we center. I think centering, we can get into that too. We center before our call so that we're really connected and we're engaged. And then it just opens up. And then usually when I read the things on the paper, that takes us right where we need to go versus hearing the story, hearing the this and that. I need a little information to converse with you and to get you where you want to go. But the paper really guides us to the things that you really need to work on, right? It's a direction. It's like a map.
Well, we talked a little bit before we hit record, and I just want to bring something that I've observed and get your take on it, which is that companies are becoming aware that they aren't going to get the best work unless people bring their full selves to work.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is they're often not supposed to bring spirit. By full selves, it often means mind and body, and maybe there's some connection to Buddhists, but there's, because of a fear of bringing religion, they tell people to bring their whole self. And the reason I mention this is I was on a networking call, and one person, I think one woman was the first to say it, and then everybody chimed in, "Oh, I'm really spiritual." And although they weren't saying you're not supposed to bring spirit to work, if you listen to the rest of the conversation, it was like that was our little secret admission at the end of a networking call. So I would just like you to talk about the environment in corporate America and how this alignment might be a part of the solution.
Well, I think that, I say this a lot. If you see my stuff on social media, I always revert back to the human being, right? So again, we're deliberately created this way. We can't not show up to work without our soul. It doesn't work that way,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's all connected. But we've created language and fear, like even woo woo. Oh, that's woo woo. We create such toxicity in definition versus empowerment in definition of things. So, spirit is your soul. You can't disconnect from it. You can turn down your connection to it, or you can turn up your connection to it, but you can't turn it away. You can't turn it off. And that goes into that craving. So, what's happening is we are having a soul calling happening right now at a massive level because, and if you think about it, there are millionaires and billionaires who use people just like me to help them succeed in life, to help them align with their souls, their hearts, right? To be in that heart set, soul set mindset so that they can be the person they want to be as they grow their businesses or their wealth or their family or their mission in life. This has existed forever, right? It's just how we label it as a tool, right? And the other thing I get a lot of pushback on too is certification. I mean, what do I need to be certified in? I'm working with you as a person and your soul, your spirit, aligning you to your perfection. Where's the certification for that? There isn't one, right? So we can coach people, we can advise people, we can help leaders rise just by helping them be better people, period. And better people become aware people. Aware people become responsible people. Responsible people become conscious and empathetic and compassionate. That's the domino effect.
And people that are treated that way want to stay with the organization that enabled that process to unfold.
Right. Allowed it.
That's the
Yeah.
business case.
Yeah. And it's not woo woo. What I do is just like we're doing here. We talk, I guide, we help. But the thing that I love about the intuitive part is, or the channeling, as I really strongly say, because we are all channeling all the time. You just don't know it. We're channeling for ourselves, we're channeling for other people because we're downloading genius and support and help from this ethereal place that we all talk about, that we now have quantum physics that says, yes, this exists, right? So we're all channeling all the time. Tap into it. Use it as a resource to really understand who you can become in every moment, let alone in a lifetime.
It makes me think of empathy. When you said we're tapping into it, and we keep hearing we need softer leaders. We need to bring our empathy to, and sympathy and focus on the people, which is sometimes counter to what we were taught as
Right.
business managers, right? Like we didn't talk about that. We learned about finances and risk management, hard things. Not where are the soft things? And when we were talking at one point, Kristin, we had talked about companies having a soul.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that made me think of culture, how we define the culture of our company. How do you want that culture to be, right?
Right.
You define it, you put it on the wall, it shows up like this. And but yet we're not allowed, or we don't feel comfortable talking about spirit. And it like smacked me in the face when you said, well, but companies have a spirit.
Right.
It's interesting because the word corporation means body. And just like you were saying, do you really want to hire a body that comes to work for you? No, you want their mind
Just
too.
a body.
And if you're smart, you want the soul. But yeah, so there's this body, and what does it, how does it vibrate as a living entity? It has soul.
Yeah. Yeah. And
It
I
has
think,
spirit. Esprit de
think,
corps, they call it.
right. And I think
Spirit of
too,
the body.
spirit of the body, exactly. And I think too, what got lost is that people go to work, not professionals. Professionals don't go to work. It's a byproduct of the job. It's a profession. You act professionally. And yes, we need some sort of structure and what's the word? Um, Respect and guidelines to be appropriate, so to speak, in business. That's all perfect. There's nothing wrong with that. But the thing that's missing is that we go to work as people. So as people, we have needs that go beyond the structure and the politically correct and all these other things to make it comfortable for everybody in the office. That's fine. But what about the soul of the person? What about the heart of the person? What about the compassion and the empathy? And then too, companies make mission statements. What do you think the soul of the company is? It's the mission that they're on. So everybody going to work should have their own mission of their soul and their heart. And it really is an honor and a privilege to both be hired and to hire people. And we lose that disconnect too, as if somebody owns all the power of that. We demean people very quickly versus lifting them up. And even if we're the wrong fit for things, we still can figure that out with grace, right? But that's all leadership. It all starts with how the company decides to function highly in the brain and in the drive of disconnected business, is what I would say, or to thrive as a community, which is what my program does. Is we take teams and companies and we turn them into a community mindset so that we have more of this open-mindedness, this consciousness, this collaboration of a group working together for the greater good versus building a team. And just real quick, that theory for me is, when we have teams, and Adrienne, I think we talked about this when we were together. When we build a team, it's a great concept, but it does have some flaws to it. So when we have a team, we have an athletic team, we'll use that as an example. We have a group of people going towards the Super Bowl, right? They're going to get that ring, but they all train together, they all work hard together, and as a team, they're going to win that. But as a team, they're all independently still fighting for their own success. Hence, getting the most valuable player award, right? Or the awards that are given to individuals. The same thing happens in a team dynamic at work, right? If we're in a team, we're all going to collectively go for the goal, but I'm going to try to shine because I want a promotion, or I'm going to try to do this because I want to be better at this. And there's competition that's created in teams. Whereas when you think of community, and a tornado rips through your town, which has been happening, right? And we had one over the last summer. It was a small one. But what happens in community? Everybody comes out
together.
Everybody comes together, and what they do is they bring their best selves with their skills. They bring all their skills together and they work to solve the problem with the skill that they have. And if you don't know it, we teach you. Like, I didn't know how to work a chainsaw. Oh, that tree has to be moved. Okay, I'll give it a shot, right? Like, or, having neighbors over for dinner because my power was on and theirs weren't. Like, that's community. And if we all solve problems with that mindset, it would be a game changer, because what community has that team mindset doesn't have is compassion. And compassion is action. So we talked about that. Empathy is understanding, but compassion is action, right? You can be compassionate and have actions that actually promote change. I know that was long-winded, sorry.
Well, I just want to say it was very affirming, because when we started A Leadership Beyond, we very intentionally called it a community of conversation.
Yeah.
And it's this idea that everybody has different strengths and different things we bring to the table. And through conversation, we'll be better able to decide who this makes sense for, or how we can combine our powers to make this happen. And conversation is often missing, because we think of communication as pushing out messages. Didn't you get my email, Adrienne? As though the fact that I hit send means, and the word converse is a give and take. And so that strikes a good chord with this community.
Yeah, I just think it's I mean, these are my missions. This is the path that I'm on. So, if I can become, you know, if I can help a handful of businesses or a million businesses, I don't know, just people, the focus is people. How do we change people from the inside out? And how do we let that be applicable in a work environment? I believe in high performance. I believe in hard work. I believe in being diligent and, getting jobs done. But I also believe there's a way to encourage that can be way healthier than it has been. And I talk about this too, is people don't know they're bad leaders. They just don't know. And when you're in a leadership position, who's telling you? Especially if you're the CEO. There's a lot of cooler talk, a lot of people saying things, and leaders in a lot of companies, they don't get reviews. So why is that?
Or they don't listen to the reviews. If there are 360s or things like that that are done, and they may get that feedback and dismiss it.
Yeah. And I mean, I know there's a lot of 360s, and there's a lot of what are they called again? I'm forgetting their actual technical name, but evaluations.
Yeah,
Performance
assessments.
reviews.
Right, performance reviews and evaluations. But who's giving the CEO one? Like a good old-fashioned performance review, And a lot of the top leaders don't get that, which is sad. And it can be anonymous, but they still need the information. I mean, that's just
investors, maybe the public, maybe, right? Depending on how outgoing that CEO might be
right.
in different public settings, but how much of that is not the leader?
Right.
It's the marketing and the PR and right.
Right. I think the best leaders, and there are many, 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 are truly the ones that have these conversations, have these desires. Those are the best leaders. And those are the companies that, have the happiest people, and we just need more of them. We need more of them.
It feels like too, there's a fit, if a company has a soul, that has to be made up of the souls of the people. Right. So if you've got, and then you can say soul, you can say style, you can say values, right? All coming into kind of that same thing. It's the pieces that make the whole. And that goes from the CEO down a lot of times, and so here we see the problem, right? If there's up at the CEO level, we're not paying attention and we're not listening to this.
Right.
What's happening?
And I think too, and I can't speak for every company, but it is a common thing. I created my program because I have CEOs that I work with, and we would, we do personal stuff and it would spill over into the business. And then we start seeing all the fractures. Now, mind you, I'm intuitive. So, they're like, what's going on? And I'm picking all these things up. You can see where the fractures are. So I created a program that would be very welcoming in a company where I could do the same work, but make this transformation with the leaders. So it's not a workshop. I'm not a guest speaker. It's an in the pocket for the company advisor. I work directly with the leaders so that we can get everything where it needs to be. And it's, it's a retainer thing. It's, how we can stay together as long as you want, or we could break up in 2 months. But the success of the company is truly based on how accessible somebody's support is to the leader, right? So it's not just a call this week and then I don't talk to you ever again, right? How can change happen? So it's a very focused, and it's meeting changes. It's really evaluating where the fractures are. And when I say fractures, I'm talking about where's the fractures in the soul of the company? Where did they start? Where did they end? How are they affecting people? And I don't think that's done enough. I think there are a lot of programs out there, but I don't think this element is taken into consideration in those programs.
Yeah, it's I think of just those undocumented practices that happen.
Yeah.
Like within the walls of the company. It's just the way meetings are run. And, I think we had talked about the threshold concept.
That's right.
I loved this. You
That's
have to
right.
share this, because this was like, when I worked corporate and I was back to back to back to back to back meetings, right? All day long, racing down the halls, laptops stacked on top of, with the lunch on top of that, carrying a water, carrying a coffee. I mean, it was insane. And you had described what you do with any threshold. I thought, man, if I had that 10 years ago.
Yeah. Well, it goes into the
Describe that for
centering.
us. Yeah.
Yeah, it goes into the centering that I was talking about. So when you are invested, so it's part of that being in the now, right? So here's a tool to do that. So we talk about it, but how do you do that, right? Be in the now, be in the moment. Okay. Well, when our minds are rushing and we have multiple things that we're balancing, and I did it right before this call, I center, I take a breath, I collect my thoughts. I don't take what I was just doing for the whole day into this call. I make sure that I'm calm and present for you. You are my intention. So that's what we need to do in meetings. So when we come into a meeting, and this is a tip for, whoever your audience is, we need centering in meetings. And that's something that I put in my program. So anytime somebody has a call with me, I have them center with me, and then we begin. I start a meeting and then we center and then we begin. And the reason is the retention, the focus of that meeting will excel from any other meeting they've ever had. And if you do that in every meeting, think of all the attention that meeting's getting, all the clarity, all the focus, because you've centered the entire community at the table. Now, if you leave that meeting, this goes into the threshold. So if you're busy and fast paced and you just need a quick centering, every time you go through a threshold, just you can do it in your head, or you can make a gesture with your hands and just, okay, out of that door and into the next. You don't want to always bring all of the stuff you just did into the next environment. You don't want to do that. We want to center. And if it's all you can do in a threshold, just wash that one away and be fresh for the next conversation. That's important. Or a phone call, or even coming from the car to your house. That's important. We have to close energy off and invite new energy in, right? And that's a whole nother story, and then we got to recycle it. But anyway,
well, these are the biggest. Oh, you can't see. I held up my phone with a beautiful picture of my daughter and my granddaughter. But phones.
Yeah.
This idea that we're always connected does not mean we're always connected. We want to be connected to the source and one another.
Yeah.
And I can find myself checking an email and going somewhere I don't really want to go now.
Yeah.
And multiply that by however many. So
Yeah.
Oh, I hate phones. I've come to just hate them. Those little computers we put in our pockets. I hate them.
Yeah, but are they serving us or are we serving them? And I think the word that's coming up from me when I listen to that is the awareness that centering, it's recentering, recentering and recentering. It doesn't take much to get us off center and not even realize it.
Yeah. And you can use a breath, and I used to tell clients they were really stressed going to work. I was like, well, instead of listening to music or being worried about how people are driving, just use the sound of Om. Just chant Om all the way to your destination or until you're tired. And there's something very relaxing about sound, right? So we know that we have sound baths and all these other ways to listen to sound to relax, but you can create sound with your own voice. And if you just create a pattern, of Om or something, a mantra that has a sound to it that riddles in your chest, it calms you, it centers you.
And Om is the sound of peace, and Ah is the sound of God. So if you put it together, you get Sha. What more could you have than God and peace? Whoops, I
Exactly.
forgot those two things were available. That wasn't in the email.
And one thing I do is peace begins with me.
Yes.
And it's 4 words. So when I can't say it out loud, which I mean, I do this all day long in my kids are now no longer think I'm crazy. When I'm just going, peace begins with me. Peace begins with me. I'm about to rip your head off. Peace begins with me. Peace begins with me. So that tactile, touching my thumb to each finger of the word, peace begins with me.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
And
It
I
helps.
think I
Right?
do. And I think the more tips you share with people, the greater, that's stress management right there. So obviously, as a stress management strategist, I bring a lot of tools into it. So, but as an intuitive advisor, we take the tools and we place them where they need to be so that you can get your life where you want it to go professionally and personally. I mean, that's in a nutshell, right? And then you create plans. But I think we forget that we have the actual power to reduce our stress by these little things. And little, when I mean little, you can take a big breath. You can bring your hands in prayer, put it up to your forehead or your chest and take a breath and go, okay, on to the next, or I can do this, or whatever it is,
You
right?
can find, with practice, you can find one that works for you.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I mean, I had people who, I had a client who asked me, there was a relationship thing, and it's like, well, what do I do when I'm at a restaurant and I just want to chew their head off, I'm like, well, you get up and you go to the bathroom, and I'm like, but
Yeah.
the thing is I call the bathroom the Superman booth, because you know how Clark Kent would go
Gotcha.
in there and turn into Superman, right? Well, we have the same power. We can leave the environment. We can go into the bathroom. I've done this a million times, raising children, having a chaotic house, right? Family pressures.
The one place you could lock.
You go there, you can leave the light off, you can turn the light on, you look at yourself, don't look at yourself, but take a breath and decide who you want to be when you leave. That's the key. Who do I want to be when I leave? If leaders did that, if people in business did that, if employees did that, who do I want to be when I come back to that meeting, when I come back to that room? We don't walk away enough and we don't check in, right? We can change the dynamic like that. We still need to solve problems. We just can't do it from an emotional state.
Yeah. And that's why they call it responsibility, the ability to respond. Like Adrian's example, she wants to chew their heads off and knows that she can find a different response, but noticing that energy is there on the way out.
Very much so. And that goes
You
into
can-
self-awareness.
Yeah. Well, you remind me of another one that I learned from an Aikido master that has served me well, which is finding your feet. And I just did it. My bare feet in this hotel room is, we forget we have feet. So you're sitting at a table in a restaurant. And if you're angry, if someone were to tell you breathe deep, you don't even know how to do that because you're hyperventilating. But if you find your feet, just with your consciousness, wiggle your toes and then breathe as though you're breathing into your toes, into the ground.
I love that.
You have to
And
take
what
a
it
deep breath
does
to
is
do
the
that.
energy, and I use it for public speaking, nerves. It doesn't, we say, where do we have nerves? In butterflies in the stomach. It doesn't get rid of the nerves, but it diffuses the energy. So you're still keyed up, but it's not all knotted in here. So I'm at the dinner table like this,
I love that. That's a great one. I do like that a lot.
We forget we have feet. We live
We
in our
forget
heads
so
in
many
this
of these
culture.
techniques, I think, too. And then, and you're right. I wonder if many of us apply some of these techniques at home. Like I was just thinking, like, how much do I at least try to apply, calmness at home with the ones you love, but then abandon all of those things I know when I walk through office doors, right? Because how much do you feel like that's not your professional self.
So, and that's a perfect circle back to how we can't keep separating any parts of ourselves. You're still a mom when you go to work. I mean, it doesn't change. You know what I mean? You're still a blonde. You know what I mean?
Till I decide to change that.
Right. Until
Depending which day it is.
yeah.
I'm a gray hair, so
Exactly. I mean, nothing changes from home to work. And yes, we can compartmentalize, but nothing changes.
Yeah.
Your whole person, all your backstory, whatever's going on in your life goes to work with you, period, end of story. So in order to be that person who can elevate themselves at work, if there's stress at home, is to remember that, is to honor it. And then when you go to work, you don't focus on it. You just know that it exists, right? And we take care of what we have to take care of. But if we all had that respect for one another, then we wouldn't have to just deal with life in an emergency mode when we could just be dealing with everything simultaneously very calmly, because we all get it. Right? And we can still get things done. And I also think too, and I don't know this for sure, I don't have stats on it or anything like that. It's truly an intuitive sense. There's not enough partnership at work, so that's where that community is. So if we were all working together and I finished my project, I would want to go to you and say, I have some time. Do you need any help? That's not a common practice. I mean, people are kind to a point. People are selfless to a point. So, like, how much do we really, really help each other at work outside of necessity, if that made sense, right?
Well, thank you so much for bringing good energy and good wisdom here. And we will, anything besides your website that you would like us to direct people to?
My website, and I have a men's community that I just started. So,
yeah.
and
Briefly describe
TRMX.
that one. You just
Yeah,
kicked that
yeah.
off, right?
And you have a link to that we can put in the show notes?
Yeah, if you go to my website, KristinLamarInspires.com, in the community section, it's called TRMX. And that's going to be, I have an Instagram, TRMX. So it's an Instagram, it's a podcast, but we also just launched a men's community last night, actually. Our official doors open. Thank you. And then as far as getting a hold of me to coach or to be part of my program, Kristin Lamar Inspires across the board. Just LinkedIn, IG, Facebook. Yeah.
Well, stay connected to this community, and thank you for sharing your important work with us.
I appreciate you guys having me. I really do. Thank you. I hope it was helpful to your audience. That's always what I strive for. So.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Leadership Beyond podcast. We hope you benefited from this conversation as much as we have. We invite you to join our community of conversation. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to sign up at aleadershipbeyond.com for free materials and updates. That's aleadershipbeyond.com. Join us in 2 weeks for our next episode.